What's up, everybody, and welcome. In this episode, we're talking brakes. We talking brakes? These are the brakes. Break it up, break it up, break it up. In this episode, we're talking brakes and how to improve the brake pedal feeling or feedback that you're getting. For those new to the channel, my name is Alex, aka the Rotary Knight. You can find me on Instagram at rotary_knight. That's like knight in shining armor. So why are we talking about brakes today? Well, I want to show you guys how to improve the brake pedal feeling or get some responsive feedback from the pedal. Now, it's really simple. All you have to do is replace your old, worn out brake systems. Job done. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. Adios. I'm just playing. As we all know, these old cars, it's getting harder to find parts for these. It's not like a lot of newer cars where you can just still go online and find what you need. It's getting harder to find what you need. So part of the reason I'm making the video is to show you my struggle to find new parts and part of the reason why my brake pedal feedback was so poor. So first, let me tell you the problems I was having. One, the pedal feedback. So my pedal felt like mush. It felt like you were stepping in mud every time you step on the brakes. And I know for a fact there wasn't any air in the lines because I bled the system several times. So I knew something else had to be up. And the brake pedal travel was so low that it made it difficult to heel and toe when driving or trying to do anything on the racetrack. So it sort of left me scratching my head wondering what the heck is going on and what did I do wrong? And I narrowed it down to two possibilities. One is either a bad brake booster, like the old one you can see right here, which looks nice and rusty. Or two, the distance between the brake booster and the master cylinder was out of spec. Now, in order to do this, you have to remove the brake booster and the master cylinder out of the car. So I figured since I'm going through the effort of doing that, I might as well replace these with some new parts. And this is where things got difficult. So like many of my fellow gearheads, I was excited to have an excuse to go online and find some new parts. However, I was quickly hit with reality and the struggle of finding my brake booster. Now, finding a master cylinder is easy, but finding a brake booster was a lot harder than I thought. No matter how hard I searched, everyone showed that the item was discontinued and no longer being produced. You can still buy OEM units from Mazda in Japan, but the prices were going to be over $400, and who knows how long shipping would take. But I kept searching, and then finally, I got lucky. And it dawned on me. I found a booster, actually at AutoZone of all places. However, it's a slightly unconventional solution, and it only cost me about $100. So let me tell you what it is. Now, to fully appreciate what I'm doing differently and why it actually was so hard for me to find one, there's actually 3 brake systems on the RX-7. And depending on what level RX-7 you have, depends on which one you get. So I was looking for my specific brake booster for my car, and they're just not available. Only available now from Mazda in Japan. The 3 types are, 1, we have the Turbo 2 top tier system. Now this system typically came with ABS. I think there are some versions without ABS, but for now we're assuming the Turbo 2s that have ABS. Those have a dual diaphragm brake booster and a slightly larger master cylinder. Since we have a larger amount of fluid in that system, you obviously need a larger master cylinder because you have to go through the ABS pump and then the brakes all together. And the nice thing about the Turbo 2 system is you get 4 piston brakes up front and then you get single piston in the rear. However, you have vented disc at least in the rear. Now, the second option is what my car had. We have no ABS, but we still have the Turbo 2 brakes at the corners. So that's the booster you see here, and it has a slightly smaller master cylinder since there's less volume of fluid that we have to move. And then the third option is actually the option that I found available online. That came with the base model RX-7 from 1986 to 1988. Those RX-7s were the 4-lug versions we see, typically with the phone dial wheels on them. Now those came with an even smaller brake system because they had single piston calipers up front and single piston in the rear, but it was solid disc in the rear, no vented. Now those have the same master cylinder as my car, however the brake booster is smaller, about 1 inch smaller in diameter. Now that is the booster that I found available online and ordered from AutoZone. The reason you can still find those, my guess, they're just less popular. So there's still inventory available. So if you need a booster, I recommend downsizing to the smaller one. Although you may be wondering, does it change pedal effort? Yes, it does slightly. However, for street driving, I've had no problems. I'm hoping to track drive this thing soon and give it a shakedown in about a month or so. Then I can give you some proper feedback on pushing it at the limit and how the pedal feedback is. Now, uninstalling these things is pretty straightforward. You can refer to the factory service manual, but I went ahead and ripped my old system out. She arrested one. Now, when you have the parts off and you want to measure the gap between the brake booster and the master cylinder, you're going to need a tool like this. Now, I got this one online, I think off of eBay, it's for Corvettes. So you can see it here. So in order to measure the gap to see if it's within spec, you definitely need one of these. Now, it's fairly simple to use. You simply apply this on the master cylinder, and you push the pin inside the master cylinder to measure the depth. Then you flip it around and go onto the brake booster, and you measure the gap between the booster pin and here. Now, from Mazda spec, that gap should be 0.1 to 0.3 millimeters. And there's one thing to note, I'm not sure on all cars, but on my car, the bracket for the brake proportioning valve is mounted between the brake booster and the master cylinder. So you want to have that bracket installed on the booster when you're measuring the distance between the two. Now, when I measured the distance on my old system here, it was about 2.5 millimeters, way out of spec. Now you may be thinking 2.5 millimeters is really nothing. Why did it feel so terrible? Well, you have to take into account the pedal ratio. So if you think about it, the brake pedal has to move 4.5 times whatever the master cylinder is. So those 2.5 millimeters equal to about 10 millimeters of what your foot has to move before you actually start activating the brakes. So that was part of the reason why my brake activation was so low down to the floor, and it was difficult to heel toe when I was driving. The last thing to note is, since I had both of these parts out, I decided to replace the check valve for the brake booster. Now, typically these are installed inside the vacuum hose. However, again, finding parts is really difficult on these cars, and they've been discontinued. So what I ended up doing is ordering one from a 240SX, because everyone knows that S13s are still a dime a dozen. Thank you, Drifter Tech. So the one from the 240SX fits on just fine. However, you may need to slightly modify the hard line that's on the firewall. So I just had to bend the hard line a little bit from the firewall, and I routed the hose around the master cylinder for the clutch. And to be honest, that's it. Couple things to note. Always measure the distance between your brake booster and master cylinder if you're ever changing your master cylinder, and it'll ensure you're getting proper feedback from the brake pedal. 2, finding brake boosters for these old cars is getting difficult. If you have a non-ABS setup, I would consider running the smaller booster, not only for the fact that they're available, but it actually gives you a little more clearance in the engine bay. So for those people who are running unique swaps, this could be something useful for you. Again, thanks for watching. If you found it useful, give a like. If you're interested in the build, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, before I forget, so what's coming up next? So I'm actually in the middle of replacing the wheel bearings on the car, both front and rear, and decided to show you guys a new approach for the front. And recently my old trusty Odyssey battery has died after 8 years, and I decided to replace it with a lightweight Braille battery. So again, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later in the next one. Adios.